because the U.S. Treasury market is no longer the preferred vehicle to park reserves into, and it's moving to gold and a marriage between that and blockchain, a trustless system, if you will. I think it's starting to accelerate. You're right, it is being more acknowledged, not only by people like us, but now you're beginning to see it at the highest levels of government and of central banks and commercial banks, and even on down to, to a level of sophistication where you're talking family offices and big money is starting to get it, that because of this K-shaped economy where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer because of the inflation and the cost of living, something has to be done, or this country is going to float into quasi third world status if we don't.
Just a quick break from the program. I need to share with you in urgent manner about scam gold IRAs and the important need to make sure that you're working with a trusted company in the precious metal space. I have had hundreds of people come to me now where they have lost 50, 60, 70% of their life savings in these scam gold IRAs. We are having nearly 100% success rate getting their money back. If you have put your life savings into a gold IRA, I implore you to look and see if you have been scammed. Don't trust the company that sold it to you. Make sure you understand what you can get as a buyback value for the gold or silver that you have in your IRA. If you have noticed a significant drop in what you invested, you have more than likely been scammed. We can help you, and there's no shame. Go to sarahwestall.com/Miles Franklin, fill out that form, and we will help you get your life savings back. Welcome to Business Game Changers. I'm Sarah Westall. I have Andy Schectman returning for our Friday night economic review. We are going to talk about silver and the fact that it was reclassified as a critical mineral and what that means. I've been hearing chatter that they are going to confiscate it like they did with gold. And he hasn't heard anything officially. And a lot of times things do, chatter and rumors start, and that is to get people kind of warmed up to an idea or kind of see what's going to happen. I don't know if that is this or if it's just chatter just for chatter, because once something is reclassified, people start thinking, well, does that mean they're going to do this? But I also ask them, is it possible that silver, being the most conductive material that we know of, the fact that it is really needed for industrial use, high tech and military use, is it undervalued right now? And could it feasibly be a one-to-one value with gold eventually, or even bypass it? I don't know. It's more valuable than gold when it comes to industrial use. So is it undervalued? And we're going to talk about that as well. And then we're going to talk, of course, about tariffs and other things. So hold on to your hats on this one. It's always good having Andy here. But before we get into that, I want to remind you, if you haven't heard yet, I am doing a peptide webinar with Dr. Diane Kaiser on Thursday, this coming Thursday, November 20th at 5 p.m. You can sign up for that at sarahwestall.com/peptides. Otherwise, the link will be below as well. Okay, let's get into this fantastic conversation I have with my friend Andy Schectman. But before, one more thing. Make sure that if you're interested in gold and silver, you can get the private price list. You can also go to sarahwestall.com/Miles Franklin. I need to apologize. I've been dealing with some family issues, and so there was a computer glitch that I did not catch. And so for about a week and a half, people were filling out this form and it wasn't making it to Miles Franklin. And so if you haven't been contacted in the last week and a half and you filled out that form, it's all on me. It was my fault. It wasn't his. It was mine. So know that it will be going forward. sarahwestall.com/Miles Franklin. Okay, let's get into my really good conversation with my friend Andy Schectman. Hi, Andy. Welcome back to the program.
Sarah, good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Well, yeah, our Friday night economic review that you're here so often, and for good reasons, because people like to hear your insight. Lately, I've been hearing a lot chatter about silver being confiscated in the future, possibly, because it's all rumors at this point, but everything starts with whisper campaigns, and I want to know if that's possible, because it is such an important source of military equipment and industrial use, and the price, they've been working so hard to keep it down. It's out of whack compared to how much is available, and what, the supply demand is way out of whack.
Yeah, it is. It's irreplaceable. Not only is it the most conductive element known to science, but to your point, why would they do it? You could argue, aside from the military industrial complex, which I have talked with you about at length, about the need for silver to make high-tech weapons and aerospace and F-35s and Tomahawk missiles. There's all huge amounts of silver in those items. And I would argue that's the primary reason they've held it down for all of these years. The West has. But it is the most conductive element known. It is the lifeblood of energy and data and power itself. You need it in order to transmit power across the grid. And in a world running on code and current, silver doesn't just move electricity. I would argue it moves civilization, and it does back the military industrial complex. I haven't heard that they plan on confiscating it. What I will tell you, however, is that the U.S. government did just classify it a critical mineral. And a critical mineral means that it's part of national security, and it's part of the strategic plan of the United States. And I think it's about time they did it, because almost all of the silver the United States uses for industry or for the military industrial complex or for making silver eagles is imported from Peru, from Mexico, from Canada primarily. And anything that is critical, if you're reliant upon supply chains from other countries, you're in a compromised position. But it's not just the United States that is viewing it this way. Recently, within the last week, the Chinese Ministry of Commerce has issued new rules governing exports of silver. And they say it's a aim to step up protection of resources. And this is something that you will see, because by more countries, you'll see this. But China's the largest silver refiner in the world. And if they're restricting exports starting in 2026, where every single export will require individual government licenses, and in essence, they're giving Beijing full control over every ounce leaving the country, and classifying it as a resource of national interest, not just the United States, who calls it critical mineral. Yeah, this is a big deal. They've put a floor underneath the price of silver, period. And so I think it's a very, very big deal. Will they confiscate it? Look, I have a different view on that. You have JP Morgan, who paid the largest fine ever issued by the Justice Department at the time of $920 million for spoofing the silver market. Now, a lot of people thought they would get RICO charged. They got off with a slap on the wrist. Their head trader, Michael Nowak, who I sat at a table with for lunch, is, I think, still in jail. But they're allowed to be the custodian still of the world's largest silver trust, SLV, along with BlackRock. So when you talk about, would it make sense to go door to door and knock on everyone's door and say, give us your silver, when the world is promoting gold and silver ownership to countries like India and China and Russia? China, who has state-sponsored gold and silver accumulation plans. If we were to do that, it's bad enough to confiscate Russian treasury bonds for whatever the reason that the U.S. government cited, which is in essence a default as the world reserve currency. It's another thing to activate eminent domain and take your own people's metal, and I think it's game over at that point. So instead, you have the world's largest silver trust or silver stockpile held by JP Morgan and BlackRock. They're also the primary custodians of GLD as well, where they could come in on a Friday night, take the metal, which, by the way, the prospectus does not allow you and I to possess it. Ironically, Saudi Arabia took a huge position in SLV and made a lot of people annoyed that it was in SLV. Yet, at that level, you can take possession. You have to have what's called a basket. It's a huge amount, but the custodian can limit or completely cut off redeemability as well, even to the authorized participants. But the bottom line is this: you create a vehicle that siphons all the silver into one vehicle held by JP Morgan and BlackRock, and you can, on a Friday night, they could take all of that, put it in your money market account. It's there Monday morning, and they look the world in the face and they say, what? We didn't do anything. That you can't take possession of it anyway. You can buy physical silver in the country. We just closed the fund. The prospectus gives us the right to do that. You're free to buy physical silver in this country. So if they cross that line, it's a line that you don't come back from, in my opinion. No one will ever trust us again, even their own
That makes sense.
the own population of the United States.
Well, okay, let me ask you this. Is there any reason, with silver being such an important metal, to the point where they classify it as a strategic resource, is there any reason why it has to be priced at less than gold?
No, I mean, you go back to biblical times, they were 1 to 1. Geologically, it's 7 to 1, meaning it used to be 16 to 1 for 5,000 years. And now the geological ratio, because silver is depleting, your skin is epidermal. Silver is found in nature, something called epidermis, and silver is called epithermal. It's right near the surface. So the big deposits were found long ago. It's disappearing, it's depleting. It used to be 16 to 1, it's now 7 to 1. Geologically, the ratio is 7 ounces of silver is mined for every 1 ounce of gold. And the interesting thing is, to your point, the organization, the branch of the U.S. government who wrote this critical minerals list is called the United States Geological Survey Commission. They're the ones who came out a year or two ago and said, in their estimation, silver could be one of, if not the first element struck from the periodic table of elements because it's depleting so fast. So to your point, from a standpoint of utility, of need, it's massively needed. There's nothing like it that conducts energy or light and heat the way that silver does. It's needed. You know, copper, people say, no, it's too slow. It doesn't work as well. It's needed. And to see it disappearing the way that it is, to see it be called critical, to see China say we're going to mitigate our exports. And when it's called critical, the U.S. can no longer export it if they decide to, if the president decides to. When you talk about it in relation to gold, yeah, I mean, it could very well close that gap. Could it go 1 to 1? Sure.
I mean, it used to be 1 to 1.
Times it was. Long time ago. But
okay, but let
7 to 1, 10 to 1. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, if it's being mined at 7 to 1 now. Now, how is gold? You said that silver is depleting. Is gold? It sounds like it's not depleting at the same amount. If it used to be 16 to 1, now it's 7 to 1. Where do they find gold? And could there be more gold than we realize, or have all the gold reserves been found compared to the silver?
Well, I think that's debatable. There are a lot of people that I respect a lot, like Big Swear, who would say that there's more gold out there than we know. But it wouldn't really be in the vested interest if it was the United States, for example, that held a lot more gold wherever. Bix talks about the Grand Canyon gold, and you know that's probably not going to come out anytime soon.
Sure.
But even still, if you took every ounce of gold on the planet, I don't even think there's 1 ounce for every person that's living. If you took the number of people living and the ounces of gold, it's a finite supply any way you look at it. And that's the allure. That's why it's been money. And one of the key characteristics of money is that it is a finite supply, that it is not something that can continue to expand forever at the whim of a politician. So any way you look at it.
But that sounds like silver. So what I'm trying to say is the silver to gold ratio not necessarily accurate? And perhaps silver should be a 1 to 1 already.
Yeah, it could very well be. I mean, who knows where these numbers come from? You're right. It could be. From a standpoint of
some of this
utility,
is just arbitrary from a market position, standpoint. They held the price down, and it's just kind of like we do things because that's how we do things instead of what it really needs to be. And then once people realize what it really needs to be, then the market corrects pretty quickly, as long as it's not artificially held down.
Yeah, and I like the way you think, and you're right. I mean, we have to trust the numbers that we're given. But one of the things that I focus a lot on is, the big money that's importing metal into the United States. We don't know who that big money is. We can assume, we can say maybe it's the Treasury, or who knows. We can see all this gold and silver flowing. We can talk about China going as the second largest producer in the world, buying all the doré and the concentrate from Mexico and Peru, paying double what the West will and shipping it back and refining it themselves. We know silver is important, but we look at the deliveries into COMEX. Now, here you're talking the most sophisticated Western traders. on the planet. I mean, the most sophisticated traders in the world, and they're on Wall Street. And whoever the hell is bringing in all this silver, like a good example of it is the November contract. Now, November is not a delivery month for silver. The next delivery month is December. So far, just in the first 10 days or so of the November delivery month, which isn't a primary delivery month. You can take delivery, but it's not a delivery month from a contract standpoint. We've seen, last I looked, which was 2 days ago, 3,029 contracts were delivered as of a couple of days ago at 5,000 ounces apiece. That's 15,145,000 ounces of silver. Who the hell is doing this every single month since November? We've been seeing this every single month since November. And we don't know
since
who
last
it is.
November. Since this
yeah,
November.
That's when Trump won the election. But what it shows for the silver delivery volume, that it's massive in a non-delivery month. There is big money who isn't just big money. To your point, they have all the information, and information is key. They know where the ball is going, and whoever it is keeps bringing in billions of dollars worth of silver into the COMEX every month and taking possession or leaving some in the exchange in what's called a eligible account. Now, that it's not for delivery, it's being held in strong hands. But the amount of gold and silver coming into the country is unlike anything anyone has ever seen before in both metals. And I would argue these are the people who know the inside scoop. They don't do things at that level just for the hell of it. You're talking the biggest, most sophisticated money in the world who's closest to the information. They know where this is going.
Well, could there be more silver in our country that could be mined and we don't know? Why is it just certain countries and not the United States? Was it mined thousands of years ago? Why don't we have it here?
Well, we should, and I don't know what the reason is, but I can tell you I don't even think we're barely 10th on the list globally. The majority of it comes from Mexico and Peru. Mining over the last, when you talk about suppressing price in dollars in particular, around the world, prices went much higher against other currencies than it has against the dollar long ago because the dollar has been so strong as the reserve currency. But what I would say is when you have silver being held down to stupid levels for such a long time, it really hurts the ability to explore. I mean, it's expensive to explore and to dig and to mine. You have the energy costs, the cost of labor and the cost of everything. It's a very labor and cost intensive industry. With silver not performing the way anyone thought it should counterintuitively, that affected not only the major miners, but also the juniors and the exploration companies who have been left for dead with no investment. And it's too expensive to do much in terms of meaningful mining. You contrast that with China. For years, they've been mining gold and silver, even if it was uneconomical, because they see the big picture. They think in terms of decades or longer, and we don't. And so, yeah, we're at a massive, I don't know, it's a problem. And you're seeing the Trump administration sign deals with some domestic mining companies to mine strategic elements on their behalf, and silver will benefit from that. But it's too bad that the ambition of maybe the military-industrial complex, I would argue, to hold down the price has dramatically affected the ability for exploration and junior mining companies to look for silver.
In a weird way, that could have helped the United States. They did it in a selfish way, but if now suddenly we can reinvest our our infrastructure in developing these mining companies, then and if silver and gold goes up in value and we can make money on it and we have rich deposits that were never tapped, it could end up being a positive for us in the long run.
Sure. I mean, you could make the same statement about uranium and all of these critical minerals that have really, due to regulations and restrictions and mostly the restrictions on the environment, a lot of this has expanded to other parts of the world, South America and South Africa and other countries that have exploited their reserves. it's an
Well,
important deal. It really
well,
is.
it could. I mean, Andy, you could think about it as, an investor doesn't sell until the investment is high, right? It could be one of those things where we were forced to hold. I mean, if you look at it that way, we were forced to hold and not take advantage of our resources because of stupid reasons, selfish reasons. And because we were forced to hold, now that we are realizing we need to mine these things or we're, breaking the chains, the investment opportunity is high at this
It
point.
is, but it takes a long time to bring a
I
mine
know. We're
online. I
talking
mean,
decades, aren't
years.
we?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the problem. And
And we also have green energy policies. I know that in Minnesota, they have been working for decades to shut down these critical resource mines. And they've done the hoops they make these people jump through to do a mine is incredible.
yeah, don't get me started on the policies of Minnesota. I left Minnesota largely because of those policies. And
Well, it's one
uh,
of the most critical mines. We have a really rich deposit in North Minnesota that could really bring jobs to the area, but really help the country strategically. And it's sitting there, it's ready to go, and they do everything they can to block it. And it's ridiculous.
yeah, it is. It's too bad. And I have a client who spent a lot of time in the mining industry up in the Iron Belt up in northern Minnesota. I mean, I'm from Minnesota, so I'm very familiar with it. But the stories that he will tell you, it's crazy. You're right. They've done everything they can to mothball what should be exploited instead of going around the world and being reliant on every other country, many of which we're not aligned with geopolitically, for things like silver or critical minerals or rare earths or any of the things that we need, is silly.
Well, and
So
listen to this. I dug into this. The mine that they're trying to shut down is actually pretty clean. They're forcing us to get our critical minerals from China, and elsewhere, but most of it from China. Who they're talking about pollution, and the pollution that this mine would put out is nothing compared to what the mine where they're forcing people or us to buy it from. And their stats, it's like 10 times the pollution. On top of that, how they're treating their workers, they're not paying them well, and I mean, almost like slave labor. So these people who are mothballing it, as you're saying, are using all these reasons, and then what they're doing is forcing us to buy from a place that is much worse than what they claim they're trying to protect us from. So they
yeah,
don't
they're
care about
polluting.
these other people or the world at large. It's just one big excuse that makes no sense once you look at the bigger picture. Just a brief interruption to the program to talk to you about peptides. I'm working with Dr. Diane Kaiser to bring you guys peptides. I'll have a link below, so if you have any questions on any of this, you can join her tribe for $1 and get all your questions answered. But I have some exciting ones to bring to you. I'm using them too. I have this anti-aging one that works wonders on helping the cell generation and building up your collagen. And then I have the retatrutide, if I pronounced that right. The retatrutide has shown in studies, I mean, it's amazing. In 36 weeks, in human trials, have shown an average of 24% reduction in body weight. Incredible. And then I have another one, SLUPP-332. That one you can get in capsules. I call it the moron proof because you can get it in capsules. You don't have to inject yourself. It's not nasal spray. But that one is making, in the bodybuilding industry, is just game changer, because in mice, in the trials, it showed a 12% reduction in body weight in 4 weeks. It mimics exercise. They're seeing 70% greater endurance. I mean, it's just incredible. It's taking that industry by storm, and you can get it in capsules. And I have a link below as well. I'm very excited about this. So I hope you join me in this journey and try some of these peptides. Okay, so I have the link below, or you can go to sarahwestall.com under shop.
Well, many of the arguments that we see coming from that side of the aisle lack logic. And, it's at some point you have to think about national security. And when you realize that the U.S. literally imports almost all of its silver, yet it is needed in so many so many respects, it's about time that they reclassified it a critical mineral. It should have been done a long time ago. And the folks in Canada tried to call it strategic about 2 years ago to have it reclassified, and it is. And that's, it's funny because a lot of the things that I've been talking about for a long time, gold and silver, which are really the opposite of the dollar, are now being quietly embraced by the US government, and both gold and silver are kind of no longer contrarian as much as they once were. Now, maybe for the mainstream it still is, but the government is looking at gold and silver as far more than archaic relics from the past. In fact, I think they are looking at gold to be part of the monetary system and looking at silver as strategic and critical as it really truly is, especially in a world that is digital. You talk about transmission of energy. It transmits civilization. Without silver, you do not have the ability to have the infrastructure that is needed to be a growing, thriving civilization. It's really important, and I think it's someone tapped Trump on the shoulder and said it's about time that we do this for this country, and I'm thankful for that. And what they've done is make it a matter of national security and national policy. They put a floor under the price of silver. I do believe that. And then you look at the largest refiner in the world, China, saying, well, we're not going to export very much anymore. It's becoming a battle. Then you look at the supplies on the London Metals Exchange, the LBMA, that are literally being bled dry. We've talked about extensively. Things are going to get interesting. And when we talk about silver, Sarah, I don't tell people to buy it to get rich or to get wealthy. It is wealth. But when you look at the size of the market cap of the silver market, it's a pimple on the elephant's rear end. It's such a small market cap. If you start to all of a sudden throw in government money, you're going to have a battle between the industrials, Tesla, Samsung, Sony, the hedge funds who smell blood in the water, the investors, and the government. All three are going to be vying for the same ounce of silver. The potential is massive, and it's not why you buy it, but it is truly has an extraordinary story behind it.
That's right.
I think government acknowledging
it's interesting.
Puts an exclamation point behind it.
This is an interesting time. Before we close out, I want to talk about tariffs in China, because people have been worried about tariffs causing extreme, inflation. But from what I'm reading and seeing is that instead of digging their heels in and using the Chinese manufacturers, a lot of people are shifting to other countries like Vietnam and elsewhere to get their product so that they're not affected by these tariffs. Is that what you're seeing, and what will that do to global trade?
It's funny because Vietnam is applied to BRICS. I think that a lot of what Trump is trying to do is actually to reshore manufacturing, and you do so that's one way of starting the ball to incentivize, in essence, a weaker dollar. And because many of the tariffs that he's putting on are more like sanctions than they are tariffs. I really do believe that the ultimate goal of this administration is to find a way to bring home manufacturing. The only way to do that is to massively debase the dollar. You even hear Main Street talking about the debasement trade, about the debasing dollar. You let that happen by letting the price of gold and silver go gold in particular and Bitcoin go much, much higher, which devalues the dollar. Case in point, you look at it and compare it to silver. First of all, the dollar's down 8 or 9% against the dollar index this year, but it's down 70% against silver, even with the recent pullback. So the dollar is falling against the barometers, that's gold or silver. And I think that's exactly what they're trying to do, is to devalue the dollar, to reshore manufacturing, to get rid of the reserve status, as the former chief economic advisor for the Biden administration mentioned, and he wrote a report called Dethrone King Dollar. Jared Bernstein, knucklehead he was, but the whole thing was to get rid of the reserve status because of Triffin's dilemma. Vice President Vance has said that. And all of the moves that they are making are saying that you look at Tether, which now has almost 13 billion in gold, and they were at the Beaver Creek Mining Summit, and their CEO of USA Tether, which is a Genius Act compliant stablecoin, is Bo Hines. He was the crypto czar for Trump through August, and they're buying up copious amounts of gold. They are becoming a massive player in it because every stablecoin backed by U.S. Treasury lowers interest rates for the government, provides the synthetic energy to run the government, but that interest is not transferable. So they're taking it and buying gold and Bitcoin. And I think that was the deal that was kind of wink, wink made, where you continue to buy gold as a major player, almost a central bank player, to push the price of the dollar or the interest rates down. But the rising gold price devalues the dollar, which helps you then reshore manufacturing. And as we've talked about before, just to hammer it home again, Judy Shelton, Trump's nominee to run the Fed last time, says, no, they're going to peg the back end of the bond market July 4th next year. Trump told me that multiple times. She says, now you have a 20-year treasury redeemable in gold with zero interest rates attached to it. No coupon, redeemability in gold. You can bring back manufacturing at a zero upfront cost, sell the product into a massively devalued dollar. What all of this means is that if you save in dollars, you're screwed. You do not want to save in dollars. And this is a prime example this year where silver, with its recent pullback, although it's right back up to 53 bucks in the futures, 53.20 right now, it's right back to where it was. It's up 70+% against the dollar, but the dollar index shows its dollar's only down 8 or 9%. Up 70 or down 9, this is the problem. You don't see it unless you measure it against something like gold or silver. They want a devalued dollar. And the tariffs are just another part of it to push everyone away from the dollar being the world reserve currency. I really do believe that's what they want to do, as crazy as it sounds. It's the only way. When you look at AI that's taken 50% of entry-level jobs, or will within the next 3 years, and 60% of this country without a reading proficiency above the 6th grade, and where the last trillion in debt happened in 71 days, a trillion seconds ago, being 31,688 years ago, we're dead if we don't bring back manufacturing. And I think that's what they're doing.
Andy, I don't think it's just entry-level jobs. I think it's most of the middle jobs. I think it's a lot of professional jobs. I almost think the professional jobs would be quicker than the entry-level jobs.
My son was an accountant. He works for me now, thank goodness. But at Price Waterhouse, right out of college, he was getting paid $70,000 a year to analyze the balance sheet of a real estate investment trust. Just like that, AI could do it, and without the headache and the cost and the hassle of an employee. Goldman Sachs issued a report today saying that everyone they're talking to is talking about this, that it's having a more profound effect than they would expect. They don't all say mass layoffs, they say cost restructuring because of AI. And it's a big deal. So if you don't bring back manufacturing, what do you do? How do we service the debt? So this is all about the same thing. The tariffs, to me, were not about, when all the gold and silver was coming back, it wasn't about tariffs. And I don't think it's about what he says it's about. It's more along the lines of getting to the ultimate goal of a massively devalued dollar, much higher commodity prices, to reshore manufacturing and to sell those manufactured goods to the rest of the world in a dollar that isn't the king dollar. And that was the name of Jared Bernstein's report, Dethroned King Dollar.
Yeah, and that's probably what's happening. And I think what's happened too is gold and silver has left this niche thing of preppers.
That's right.
And people are realizing that the language and what you were saying for years is correct. And it's becoming now global finance itself. You're not just this prepping community, it's the backdrop, it's the foundation of global finance.
It's national security.
And national security, it's and industrial use. It's more serious than just prepping and a bunch of lunatics on the, right. It is literally the foundation of global finance, national security, and high tech.
Yeah, and the foundation of finance has been trust ever since 1971 when we closed the gold window. Do you trust us? Well, who trusts us anymore? Truthfully, who does? I mean, we may still be the primary world reserve currency for now because we're the cleanest shirt in the dirty laundry hamper, but who really does trust us? Not only our fiscal irresponsibility of spending, but our geopolitical issues with the world and our track record of doing things like weaponizing the Treasury and doing all of these things. This is what has brought about this renaissance of gold and silver coming back into the fold. Silver as a critical element to run a productive economy and country on every level, from military to commerce, and gold because the U.S. Treasury market is no longer the preferred vehicle to park reserves into, and it's moving to gold and a marriage between that and blockchain, a trustless system, if you will. I think it's starting to accelerate. You're right, it is being more acknowledged, not only by people like us, but now you're beginning to see it at the highest levels of government and of central banks and commercial banks, and even on down to, to a level of sophistication where you're talking family offices and big money is starting to get it, that because of this K-shaped economy where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer because of the inflation and the cost of living, something has to be done, or this country is going to float into quasi third world status if we don't. And I know that sounds dramatic, but the people who have assets are getting richer by the moment, and the people who don't are finding a harder time just making ends meet. And that is not what this country is about. We need to bring back what made this country great, and that is the middle class, a vibrant one that is being decimated as we speak.
Well, and I also think we need to get our arms around what AI really means. How do we train young people to actually use AI in a way that's meaningful, where they develop their skill set as part of AI? And right now, I think most educators are behind the eight ball and they don't know how to use it. And we are not training our people.
I mean, how do you even educate yourself if you just ask your phone what the hell the answer is? I mean, we had to go and use the Dewey Decimal System and go into the library and pull out a book and actually research. Everything I've ever done for all of these years has been reading and researching, and now AI does all that for you. We're breeding a whole generation of illiterate people.
That's right. That's exactly right.
The scariest part. And then you look at you go to the global south, look at China, look at India. They're pumping out, and Russia, pumping out, all sorts of engineers and
scientists,
astronauts, and they're pumping out people that will build their economy, and we're kind of stagnating. I hate to rain on this. I am a patriot and an optimist, but we've reached that point.
Yeah, but being a patriot, and you have to deal with the issues if you're a patriot. You can't just gloss over it and pretend. I mean, you have to be able to deal with the issues. I had a really good show with a neurologist talking about, he also has a PhD in history. He's like really an interesting person. And he's talking about the changing brain, that kids' brains are actually different because of what we value. But we were talking about how you actually use ChatGPT to write a paper, for example. And he has a professor that does it exactly the way I use it. And the way he uses it, well, I write something up, I have ChatGPT fix it, and then I fix what ChatGPT did. And he has his students do that so that they are forced to think about what it is that they're doing and not have ChatGPT to it, and then show them, not have ChatGPT do it from the beginning, and show them the difference of how much better it is when you understand what it is that you're trying to get accomplished. And so and we still haven't figured out exactly how to use it in that way completely. That's just from a writing standpoint, but from so many different angles. Otherwise, we're going to be exactly what you're saying. We're going to have a bunch of illiterate people that have no idea. They haven't learned anything.
Yeah, I think it probably will increase productivity for corporations, but it's also going to put millions of people out of work and create social and political chaos as a result. I mean, it's Pandora's box. The toothpaste is out of the tube; you can't put it back in. But what does it mean? It would be far more beneficial if we were the engine of productivity and of manufacturing. And I think that is what Trump is trying to do. Yep. And it will be painful to get there, but it is something that must be done for your kids and your grandkids, period.
That's right.
I believe that.
Okay. They can go to sarahwestall.com/Miles Franklin.
Yes,
they can get your private price list. They can get help on if they got scammed in an IRA. Tell us what they can do, how they can reach you.
You want to go to that website or to that email address, send us an email, say that you saw us on, if they're sending
sarahwestall.com/Miles Franklin.
Yeah. and that's the best way to do it. And we will get back quickly to people. I know there was a little computer snafu
so I apologize to
last
everybody.
week. So a few people haven't been contacted. They should have been by today. I think that's taken care of. But yeah, we are a high touch point company. We want to talk to people and help. We've done this for almost 36 years without a customer complaint ever. And we'll make sure that your people aren't the first. And we're eager to help any way that we can. And I'm just honored to be associated with someone of such high integrity like yourself. With you, it means a lot to me. And so do the people who trust you enough to come talk to us. So we're very thankful for that as well. And I look forward to doing this with you, weekly, because there's so much happening. I just think that it's important.
And we need to do another webinar at some point up in the future. But I got to stress this every time I talk about you. And I think it's because I learned through these IRA scams, buying from somebody that you trust is really, really important. And you proved to me through this process that people can trust you. And that means a lot, because in this world today, there's so many scams. There's so many people that are just trying to make a buck. And, sometimes their back is against the wall. They don't have a choice. They need to make a buck for their family. But you don't do that. You're somebody they can trust. And when it comes to your life savings, you want to make sure you're with somebody you can trust.
Well, I appreciate that. And I live in Delray Beach, Florida, where we've had an office for 18 years as a satellite office. Our corporate office is still in Minnesota. And I left it there, as you know, because Minnesota is the only state in a federally non-regulated industry where you have to be licensed, bonded, and background checked every year. Most companies won't do business in Minnesota as a result of that. I left it there for that reason, to be held to a higher standard. So people should know that we are licensed on par with a FINRA regulated stock and bond company or a brokerage. And I left it there and embrace it, even though it's onerous and I have to sign a personal guarantee on my balance sheet every year and disclose my balance sheet in order to back that bond. But it means that on top of never having a complaint, which I'm really proud of, state of Minnesota doesn't care. They say you still have to be licensed and bonded and background checked. And so we'll make sure that it goes well. And you're right, this industry breeds a lot of companies that are doing things that are less than honest. And you've seen it and we've seen it, and it's shocking. And I have Dale Whitaker coming on my show, I think next week. I know you've talked with him, and he's one of the whistleblowers that has talked about all of this, and it's tragic, the stuff we've seen, but that isn't us. And I appreciate your kind words. It means a lot to me. And
well, it's just a matter of time before this comes out. I mean, I can't imagine that it's gonna, but maybe they can. We've seen a lot of things, brushed under the rug.
No, it should come out. It ought to come out. The fact that it hasn't come out is really crazy to me. And I've talked with people who have hinted that it is coming out, but I'm happy to have been a part of it. And I try to do things the right way. I've never mentioned the names of any companies while being on your show or any other. I don't know if that'll be the case with Mr. Whitaker. I guess we'll see. But I think people should know about it. And it's the stuff I've seen, Sarah. It transcends criminal. It's heartbreaking. I had one guy come up to me at a conference I did in Ottawa, Canada, with Jean-Claude, and crying and saying, my wife is in there, and if she sees me talking to you and tears are rolling, she's going to leave me. He's 80 years old. She's going to leave me. I've squandered our savings. I mean, you can't even breathe when you hear this stuff. You don't even know what to say. It's real. And I know you've done a big service to the community by bringing it to light and allowing me to talk about it. So I'm excited to have Dale on the show and see what he has to say.
Well, that's good. And I am a little disappointed in some influencers who know about it and are double downing on selling their company, even though they know that their company, or they've been told their company's scamming. They claim they don't believe it, but they don't look into it. So I'm pretty disappointed in some of the people that are doing that. I think the majority don't know, but some have been told and they just look the other way. So
well, God bless you for doing it. It makes what you're doing that much more credible, as far as I'm concerned. You're a good person, and that comes before anything else. If someone's going to listen to you, the first thing is she a good person? And aside from being in Minnesota, where, I know they've, for my whole life, bred good people,
Well,
you are, and I can attest to it. I've known you a long time, and I respect you for it. I know you were offered a lot of money from these companies, and that's the allure. But, at the same time, you could argue, right, you're right. You're selling out the people listening to you and trusting you. And that's a true statement now after everything you've seen with your own eyes. So my respect and admiration goes well beyond your courage and all of the things that you stand for, but you're a good person too. And people, I hope they take that to heart, what I'm saying, because the information and the guests you have on, not just me, everybody, I know that you're looking out for the best people. At the same time, you're running a business, and that's the way commerce and capitalism work,
that's
mutual
right.
benefit. And you do the right thing, and at the same time, then good things come back to you. So I'm honored to be here, and I'll be here as long as you'll have me. And keep doing what you're doing. You are a shining star in this industry, and
Well,
I'm
thank
honored
you.
to be
Come
here.
from you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I
And
mean it.
until,
Should be said more often.
well, I have a hard time hearing that stuff, but
Everyone does, but you
yeah.
deserve it. You've
Thank
earned it.
you. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, Sarah.